Right now, somewhere in your kitchen, there's a bag of something so powerful it rewired your brain before you turned 5 years old. You call it sugar. You sprinkle it on cereal without thinking. But the real answer to where it came from is far stranger than a factory or a farm. It starts in a jungle, with an accident, a fight with an angry swarm of insects, and a taste your ancestors were never supposed to survive without. Think about the last time you craved something sweet. Maybe it was a candy bar. Maybe it was fruit. That craving feels simple. It isn't. It's ancient. It's older than fire. Older than language. Your ancestors were chasing that exact same feeling millions of years before anyone ever pressed cane into crystals. Here's the strange part. Sugar, as a pure substance, didn't exist in nature the way you know it today. Early humans never opened a cabinet and grabbed a spoonful. What they had was fruit. Wild, fibrous, barely sweet fruit. Nothing like the engineered produce sitting in your grocery store right now. And still, something in their brains lit up like fireworks every single time they found it. Why? Biologist Nathaniel Dominy has spent years studying the evolutionary link between primates and sweetness. His research suggests early hominins developed a heightened sensitivity to sugar specifically because ripe fruit meant one thing: calories. Fast, dense, usable energy in a world where the next meal was never guaranteed. A fig wasn't a treat. It was survival currency, the ancient equivalent of finding cash on the ground. So evolution did something clever. It made sweetness feel good, not a little good, intensely, urgently good. Dopamine floods the brain the moment sugar hits the tongue. That reaction wasn't designed to make you happy watching a movie with a soda in hand. It was designed to make a hungry primate sprint toward calories before a rival troop got there first. Now, picture an early human standing under a tree, unremarkable compared to what came later, barely upright, barely armed. Fruit falls. It's overripe, fermenting slightly in the afternoon heat, and it's sweeter than anything green and unripe nearby. That single moment, repeated across thousands of generations, built a wiring pattern in the brain that still fires today every time you glance at a dessert menu. Question: have you ever wondered why fruit still tastes like a reward even now surrounded by candy and soda? That's not a coincidence. That's the oldest software running quietly underneath everything else. But here's the twist you didn't expect. Sugar wasn't hiding only in fruit. It was hiding in violence. Honey. Wild, dangerous, defended by thousands of stinging insects willing to die protecting it, honey was one of the most calorie-dense substances early humans could find anywhere in their environment. Anthropologist Alyssa Crittenden studied the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies left on Earth, and found that honey may have made up nearly 15% of their entire caloric intake. 15%, from a food source guarded by an angry swarm with nothing to lose. Getting that honey wasn't a stroll to a hive. It meant climbing trees using nothing but hand-cut notches carved into bark. It meant enduring dozens, sometimes hundreds, of stings across the face and arms. It meant smoking out a colony with fire, one of humanity's earliest tools used for something as ordinary sounding as dessert. And humans did it anyway, again and again, generation after generation, because the reward was worth the pain. Ever wonder why some cultures still associate risk with sweetness? Why daredevil energy shows up around indulgent food? Why treating yourself still feels a little rebellious, a little forbidden? That instinct might be older than any of us ever realized. There's something else working in humanity's favor here, something almost too perfect to be coincidence. Humans developed a unique, almost impossible relationship with a small bird, the Honeyguide. This bird leads people directly to beehives, chirping and flying in short bursts toward the nest, waiting patiently for humans to break it open using tools and fire. In return, the bird eats the leftover wax and larvae once the humans are done. Researcher Claire Spottiswoode documented this exact behavior in Mozambique, showing that specific vocal calls exchanged between humans and wild birds increased the chance of successfully finding honey by more than double. Let that sink in. A wild animal guiding humans toward sugar in exchange for scraps nobody else wanted. This wasn't domestication. This was cooperation, built around a shared craving for something sweet. Ancient rock art tells the same story in silence. Cave paintings across Africa, Spain, and India show human figures climbing toward hives, swarmed by tiny painted dots representing angry bees, torches held high. Some of these images are estimated to be over 8,000 years old, painted long before writing, long before metal tools. Someone thousands of years ago thought this moment mattered enough to paint on stone forever. A person risking pain, climbing toward danger, for something sweet. Long before honey hunting ever made it onto cave walls, evidence of that same craving shows up in the bones themselves. Researchers analyzing dentalware and isotope signatures in ancient human remains have found signs of heavy fruit and honey consumption stretching back tens of thousands of years, long before anyone planted a single crop on purpose. The craving came first. Farming came later, built almost entirely to chase it. And once humans figured out how to grow instead of forage, sugar didn't stay hidden in trees for long. Sugarcane itself likely originated in New Guinea, chewed raw for its sweetness thousands of years before anyone thought to process it. Traders carried it westward until it reached India, where early refining techniques transformed raw cane juice into something closer to crystallized sugar for the very first time. By the time sugar reached medieval Europe, it wasn't food anymore. It was status, a luxury so rare, so expensive, only royalty could regularly afford it. Physicians prescribed it as medicine. An entire continent quietly obsessed over something the Hadza people were already finding for free at the top of a tree. So if sugar was this rare, this fiercely defended, this genuinely dangerous to access, why does it flood every single grocery store aisle today? Why is it hiding in bread, in sauces, in things that shouldn't even taste sweet in the first place? Because your brain never got the memo that scarcity ended. For nearly all of human history, sugar was seasonal. It was rare. It disappeared for months at a time, sometimes years. Your ancestors' brains treated every sweet encounter like an emergency stockpiling opportunity, because tomorrow it might vanish completely. Eat now. Store fat now. Survive whatever lean months come next. Then agriculture happened. Sugarcane cultivation spread slowly from New Guinea through Southeast Asia, then into India and the Middle East. Then European colonization turned sugar into one of the most brutal, most profitable commodities in recorded history. Planted across entire continents by force, harvested through unimaginable human suffering. And suddenly, a substance that used to require climbing a tree while absorbing hundreds of bee stings was sitting in an unlimited pile at every corner store, sold for pennies. Your brain still doesn't know the difference. It still lights up the exact same ancient pathway, the one built for scarcity, the one built for fruit hanging just barely out of reach, the one built for smoking out an angry hive with nothing but fire and nerve. Except now that pathway gets triggered by a vending machine humming quietly in a hallway. Food scientists know this. Psychophysicist Howard Moskowitz spent decades researching what he called the Bliss point, the exact concentration of sugar that maximizes craving without triggering the brain's natural shutoff switch. His work quietly shaped how entire categories of processed food are formulated down to the gram. Your ancestors never had to fight against an opponent built specifically to exploit their own biology. You do, every single day without even realizing it, standing in a hallway near a vending machine that was engineered, quite literally, to outthink your ancient cravings. Think about how strange that actually is. For most of human history, the challenge was finding enough sugar to survive. Now the challenge has flipped. The challenge is resisting sugar that finds you first, placed at eye level near the checkout line specifically because someone studied how your brain responds to it. That's the real story here. It's not really about sugar at all. It's about a craving built for a world that no longer exists, still running the show inside a body that evolved for scarcity, dropped into an environment of endless, manufactured abundance. So the next time you reach for something sweet without even thinking, remember what that impulse actually is. It's not weakness. It's not some modern character flaw. It's a signal inherited directly from ancestors who climbed trees, outran swarms of bees, and cooperated with wild birds just to get a single taste of what you can now buy for less than $1. Somewhere in your kitchen, there's a bag of something so powerful it rewired your brain before you turned 5 years old. Now you finally know exactly why. Thanks so much for watching. If this kind of deep dive into the hidden science behind everyday habits is something you enjoy, do us a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Your support helps this channel keep growing, and we can't wait to bring you the next mystery hiding in plain sight.